Alright, the only tools we're going to need for the radiator swap are a couple of ratchet handles, several different options for extensions. Just because it's so tight in the engine compartment, it's hard to get to some of the nuts and bolts we need to get to. It's a T25 Torx bolt, T30 Torx, and then a 13mm socket, and then a small screwdriver just to help with some of the clips and things. And that's pretty much it. One other thing you're going to need, obviously, is some coolant. This is for European vehicles. You want to make sure you use this in your Volkswagen or any other German models. You can also get the original G12, G13 coolant from the dealership. Yeah, I'm going to be replacing the radiator on this 2009 Volkswagen EOS today. I've seen a few videos online where people will pull the entire front nose off the car to replace it, but I'm going to try to do this without doing that. Then pull the radiator out from inside the engine compartment up through the top. So first thing I'm going to do is put the car up in the air because I need to get underneath it. Alright, so I've got it lifted in the front. Make sure you have the parking brake on. Also make sure you use jack stands to make sure this is secure. Next thing I'm going to do is remove this plenum right here. Get that out of the way. Alright, so I removed the front part of the air plenum here. Everything clipped together except for two T12s that held in the top part of the plenum here, the forwardmost piece. There were two T25 Torx screws like this. So I'll pull both of those out. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is remove this shield underneath the car. There's going to be two bolts at each corner. The ones in the front are right side by side. The ones at the back, they're kind of separated a little bit. There's those two, so there's two at each corner. So I'll go ahead and pull those out and pull this pan off of here. By the way, these bolts are a 13mm, and you want to take the back ones out first, and then just put something underneath the pan to hold it while you remove the last couple from the front. Once the engine is completely cool, you want to take this cap off here. Careful, it's pressurized. If the engine's hot, it could spew out either one hot antifreeze on you. You remove this, and then you would pump out any fluid that's in this reservoir out. So you would empty this. There's a hole in this radiator at the top of the radiator, so this is already drained out completely. Go ahead and disconnect the electrical connection for the fans, which is right here. There's a little red switch on this side. You'll flip and that should come right apart. I pulled this electrical connection out so you could see it. This red piece is what you want to slide forward. It's all the way forward now. And then you want to take a screwdriver and run underneath here. It'll separate the two. There's a little clip where this connection clips on. You want to separate that, and the clip will let loose right there. This is what you're trying to push down when you run the screwdriver in there, and that'll let these two pieces come apart. And then while you're under here, you want to take a T30 Torx, and we'll go ahead and unbolt the fan shroud, and you'll see there's two bolts at the top and two bolts at the bottom. So we're just going to get the bottom bolts while we're under here, and that's it right there. So there's going to be one on each side. The driver's side is a little bit harder to get to just because of the lower radiator hose. Alright, I've got both of the bottom fan shroud bolts removed. You just need to remove the two top bolts. There's one over here underneath this radiator hose, down here. The other one is right here that I'm taking out right now. So once you get all 4 of these bolts out. Electrical connections already disconnected. This fan shroud should drop right out through the bottom of the car. Alright, so I've got all 4 bolts removed. Now this fan shroud should drop completely out through the bottom of the car. You won't be able to bring it up to the top. It should drop straight down. It looks like it's hitting the hose down there. So I'm going to go underneath so I can move that hose over and then pull it out from the bottom. Alright, so I pulled this right out from underneath the car. Really all you need to do is just inspect everything, make sure there's nothing broken, both sides, make sure the fans turn freely. If you're going to be replacing it, just compare it to the new one you've got, make sure it's exactly the same, and that's it. So our next step on this car is to drain the radiator. This radiator does not have a petcock on it. There's no way to drain the radiator through any type of valve. Basically, you just have to pull off the lower radiator hose, which is right here. You have to pull this hose off to drain the radiator. And then you'll also have to pull the top hose off to pull the radiator out. I'm going to start with the top clamp, get this free, and then I'll do the bottom one. I've got a big pan I'm going to be using. So when I drain this pan will be plenty big enough to catch all the fluid that runs out of the bottom hose. Alright, I'm doing this out of order a little bit. And later in the video I'm going to say to go ahead and drain the radiator and then pull all these screws out. But I want to throw this in here before you drain the radiator. Go ahead and take out the screw underneath the lower hose outlet. Just because once you drain the radiator, this is so hard to get to because there's another hose here and it's really tight in the car. You'll have coolant all over your hands while you're trying to take the screw out, and it's so hard to get to make it very difficult. I'm going to go ahead and take off the top hose here. You'll see a little metal clip that attaches this fitting to the radiator. So you just go underneath the bottom of it, pry up a little bit. That ring should pop up. Get underneath at the top, pull up just a little. Then I'll grab it with some needle nose and pull it up on the other side. And it should come up to a point and stop, and then that should allow you to slide this fitting off of the radiator. So I got that pulled off, and there was no coolant up to this level because of the hole I have in the radiator. But I did have the pan down below sitting on the ground just in case had fluid come out. So now I'm going to do the bottom one. And the bottom hose, I definitely will have coolant coming out, so you just have to be prepared for that. Now you'll see 2 hoses down there. It's not the larger hose at the very bottom, it's the smaller hose just above that, the one that's attached directly to the radiator. Alright, so I've already got the clip pulled up on that hose. And make sure you have a good sized pan underneath, because as you can see, that coolant is going to come down onto this larger hose. It's going to come out of the radiator hose, and it's going to go multiple directions. So you want to make sure you have a big pan, make sure you have something down to catch any spills. It is dangerous for animals and small children because it smells really sweet, but it's very toxic. So that thing can be kind of hard to get off of there. I had to use something just to kind of pry it off. And then it popped off, coolant went everywhere, just as predicted. So luckily I had this big pan down, caught all of it. Right, that's still draining just a little bit out of that lower hose. Just look back at this new radiator real quick. 4 bolts to hold this radiator into the car. 2 on the passenger side. It's going to be the bottom. This is the top. And then on the driver's side where the hoses are, got one. It's almost in the middle here. And then the other one is right underneath the lower hose. So when we look in the car, you'll see right down here is that bolt right there, and that is a T30. So there'll be 2 on this side, 2 on the other side, and then this radiator should pull right out the top of the engine compartment. I've got all 4 bolts out. In hindsight, you'll want to remove the bolt holding in the radiator down to the bottom before you drain the radiator. I'll plug in another clip that explains why, so you will have already seen that by now. Alright, I'm ready to take the radiator out. I'm going to take the plastic off of this new one, and I'm going to put it over the openings on the old one before I take it out, just so there won't be as much coolant running out of the radiator when I'm trying to pull it out of the car. Alright, hopefully that'll help some. Now I'm going to have to use both hands. I'm going to set this phone down a minute, but you can see the radiator is completely loose now. I just need to pull some hoses out of the way and make sure everything's clear as I pull this out. So I'll do that right now. Alright, I was able to pull that out of there. And here it is. And here you can see why I needed to replace it. Right there, a little puncture wound right through the top of the radiator. Now it's possible if I cut away the fins, there may be a way to repair this, but it's not worth it. Brand new radiator that I bought for this is only $80. Got it on Amazon from JSD. There'll be a link in the summary below the video that'll take you to exactly where I bought this. And you do want to compare this one to the old one, make sure they are exactly the same before you go through the hassle of getting this into the car and trying to get it connected. So I'm going to do that right now. Alright, so I've got both radiators here. I can see all the holes exactly the same size, same location on both ends of the radiator. So I'm going to go ahead and drop it in. I'm going to show you this angle real quick of where I've put the radiator hose fitting back onto the radiator. There'll be a click when it pops all the way into place. It's pretty hard to get on there. You pretty much have to get both hands in there on it and push. But you want to make sure the little tab is completely inside the fitting, and that's how you'll know you have it all the way on. And then you can just pop down your clip to hold it in place. That's it. Alright, so I tightened up all 4 bolts, 2 on each side of the radiator. Got both my radiator hoses fully on and clamped, and well, not clamped, clipped. And now I'm ready to install the fan. So the fan, remember, you have to install from underneath the car. So I'm getting ready to go under, and I'll push this up from the bottom, and then I'm going to reconnect the electrical connection and put in all 4 bolts for the fan shroud. Now the fan shroud is in. I would recommend, once you push it up from the bottom, come up to the top and put in the top bolts first. it'll just be easier than trying to put in the bottom bolts while trying to hold the fan up at the same time. And be sure and connect the electrical connection. I'm not going to put in the skid plate that goes underneath the car yet. First I'm going to top off the coolant. Be sure and use a G12 or G13 coolant for Volkswagens, Audis, other German cars. They do require specific coolant. And if you see a bright green coolant in here, you need to do a full radiator flush using distilled water, get it completely cleaned out, because the bright green coolant is not the correct coolant for these cars. Okay, so I got it back together, back on the ground, drove it around the block. It's a little low on coolant. I'm gonna let it cool off, and I'll top that off. There's a fill line down here on the bottom of the reservoir. And that's it. Thanks for watching.